Well, let's talk a little bit more about the Legacy Fort Wayne and the proceeds from the Light Lease Trust Fund. Um, are we moving too fast? Should we? I mean, it just seems like there's sometimes a rush to spend, and or at least even to look at ways that we could spend.
No, I don't think we're rushing it. I think we're going to take our time with this. I know there's going to be some recommendations coming forward, maybe this fall, but then who knows how long it's going to take to digest those recommendations. So we'll see. I think I've talked to some of the city staff people. I mean, it's overwhelming, this process that they set up. There's so much requests coming in, whether it's people writing their proposals or going to the public meetings or sending things in email or however, or group proposals of one sort or another. I don't know, there must be hundreds and hundreds of ideas how to spend the money. What I hope can happen, Steve, is that the Legacy Task Force can maybe, boil things down to maybe 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 major categories. It could be parks, it could be transportation, it could be downtown riverfront, whatever. The business community, setting up an opportunity fund, all kinds of things. And then kind of list some of the ideas that fit under those categories and see, what survives and what doesn't, how much a likeness is there between some of these recommendations. So we'll see where it goes. And then, eventually this will all come before City Council and we'll have our at bat to take a look at these things. And Council will do a good job with this because most of us, we all know the needs of this community. And we will take the recommendations of the task force very seriously. But I think it's going to be an ongoing process. Mm-hmm. Maybe the first look at the ideas will, they'll morph into something else. It's got to be a very fluid and dynamic process. But one thing I will say, so I don't think it's being rushed. I really don't. But I lost my train of thought here. But I think that some of the money should be spent and some of it should be saved. Spending. I'm a strong proponent and advocate for neighborhoods, and always have been. And the biggest request that I or any other councilman gets are requests for improve my streets and sidewalks and street lighting. It's by far the most requested thing we get. So I think the neighborhoods should receive some of this money. And what I would like to see in particular, Steve, is that $20 million of the trust fund be set aside for a neighborhood trust fund or neighborhood endowment. Not that the money's going to be spent, it's going to be saved. And let's say you've got $20 million. Let's say you earn 3% interest a year. That's $600,000. That's $100,000 per council district. That's just sort of gives you a little feel for what it could be. And for any council member to get $100,000 more in your district, man, you can do a lot with that. We probably need $1 million, but $100,000 is a great start. And this would be over and above what the city's already putting into neighborhoods. And I think it would be a strong vote of confidence and say to all the neighborhoods across the city, we know that you are the backbone of our city. And the other one is another area to spend in, and this deals with jobs in particular, something called an opportunity fund. And what that means is, as I understand it, Steve, is that let's say some business wants to come to Fort Wayne, and they're going to invest millions of dollars here. But, they don't quite have enough money, or there's something blocking their way. Like, maybe you're going to be, using new land, new territory, and green space, and you've got to do environmental studies. They can be very expensive. Maybe it's a $300,000, $500,000 environmental study, which, this company just can't quite put into their budget. We would have an opportunity fund. Let's say it's administered by the Economic Development Alliance, where they could loan them the money they need, and it would be a revolving loan. They would pay us back. But that company wouldn't have to walk away from Fort Wayne and go someplace else because we were $500,000 short of making it work. I think I'll just say maybe that could be a $5 million fund. I have no idea if that's really a right number or not, but it's probably somewhere in the ballpark. I would also, we were talking about the gateways earlier. I think maybe some money could be put into the gateway from the airport, as well as the replenishing the city tree canopy. We had the ash borer, and a few years ago, 4 years ago now, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we had the worst ice storm the city's ever seen. Many trees were really devastated and left in very bad condition. So maybe you take $5 million over some years and make sure that trees get replanted and started and the old ones get taken down. Beyond that, whatever money's left over, save it. Put it into the rainy day fund, or call it, pick some name for it, start over like the light lease fund was. So I think it should be a mixture of saving and spending. And one last comment I'd like to make about the light lease of the legacy fund is I really think I want to congratulate Mayor Henry for setting up this public process. He really opened the floodgates here, and I have to thank him for that. And I think this is going to be a process that will serve the citizens well. Steve, before we end our conversation, one of the things I'd like to say is that I'm very proud of the fact that I really do vote with my constituents' wishes. It's a hallmark of my service to the first district. I voted against certain projects like Harrison Square, against buying Renaissance Square, even spending $2 million or so on Calhoun Street downtown. And it's not that I was against those projects per se. There were a lot of problems with them, a lot of legitimate questions, and questions I feel haven't even been answered to this day. I'm not going to go back into the details. But on things like Harrison Square, at the time when that vote was taken on City Council, and I had been out of my district having meetings, field hearings, neighborhood associations, I knew what was going on. At that time of that vote, about 75 to 80% of the people in the first district were against the Harrison Square project as it was presented at that time. So I voted no. I had no problem voting no. But once that no vote is over and council approves it, then I support the project. You have to. We've got, we floated, $15, $20 million worth of bonds to help build all that. So then you support it. The same is true with Renaissance Square. I voted no at the time because the reason that was stated that we're buying that building is because we had to have that for the new police department. Well, there's no police in the building, and the building was probably 2/3 bigger than the police department ever needed, so it was pretty suspicious from the beginning that this building was going to be there for some other purposes. And it was pretty much, we had to vote on that thing in a week or so. It was sort of rammed down our throats. I never like being rushed, especially when we're talking about that kind of money. And when, after we bought the building, it was clear the police weren't going in there, because remember, the mayor had his co-location task force, and that slowed the whole process down because it took so long, by about 3 months. And so there was a lot of criticism why things took so long, but it really was a combination of the administration, the county, and the councils. But anyway, once the project's approved, even though I voted no on those 2 projects, and the people in the first district were also very much against buying the Renaissance Square building. In part, that was because I suggested and recommended in the newspapers that we buy the old empty Home Depot there at the corner of Lake and Coliseum. Put both the police departments there. Great location. So anyway, but none of that worked out. We've got a new building. We're moving into it, Citizen Square, and I support it. And there's no choice. we've $17 million worth of bonds for that building. And so we have to make it work, and I will be there supporting it. That doesn't mean I won't offer constructive criticism, but I would not. I think my no votes are probably over on that building, because we've got to make it work now.